Hello, everybody, and welcome to Eric's thoughts on their blind play of the Path to Carcosa. It is in the books. You are now 2 campaigns into Arkham Horror, the card game. What do you think of the game? Not even Carcosa, just the game itself. Do you enjoy the game?
I think the game's phenomenal. I think more people should play it. More people should get into it.
And more people should subscribe to Playing Board Games on YouTube.
Didn't say that part. No, I actually think... so my general ethos of this is that if you are a GM who runs TTRPGs, if you are someone who likes to make up stories role-playing in open-world video games, if you are a cat, if you are someone who just likes good stories and interesting narratives, it is at least worth reading everything that they've built into these games, if not playing them and actually exploring them fully yourself. Like, am I advocating that even if you're not good at the game, totally cheat and read through it and discover what happens when you do and don't do stuff? Yes, I am. I'm saying go for it, because these are some actually really well-written stories.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And also, like, yeah, if you are, like, wanting to play for the story, easy is also really good, too.
Yeah.
It brings the bag down a lot. Yeah. And then, what did you think of Path to Carcosa as a whole?
I can definitely see how Path to Carcosa is a huge step up in a lot of ways from, Can they see that?
They're growing? Yeah, they can see it.
Okay, thank goodness. Yeah. I thought maybe it was just us until you said it, and then like people were just going to be like, what's wrong with Eric? Yeah. I thought Path to Carcosa was a really strong opening into telling a much larger world version of storytelling than the Dunwich one was.
Yeah.
This is going to sound controversial. I like Dunwich's size of scope better than Carcosa.
I mean, I don't think that's controversial with what we previously talked about in that list video.
Yeah.
Because you even said you weren't looking forward to Carcosa because the scope of it seemed too big based off the description. So I think that's actually quite fair with what you said earlier.
But I do think that the storytelling and the mechanical storytelling and the writing in it and the way that they developed a sense of the game playing even into your own deck was really powerful. The choice to have the Pallid Stranger be constantly following you and showing up through the draw of your own deck was beautiful. The way that interactions you had with the characters before influenced how you interacted with the characters later was incredibly powerful. It was definitely much stronger storytelling. Much stronger storytelling mechanically.
Yeah, I think what I think is really neat is the stuff that kind of also kind of meta explores it. Like, for example, what did you think of the thing where when we heeded the warning about the oath, and if we said Haster, we took horror? What did you think of that? Like, we ourselves, like that. It's just cool. That. It's just cool.
I think I only took 2 points of damage, but it was still sick, and it was fun to name it Horby, and it was fun to play around with that, and to have like that. The game almost forces you into a point of using comedy to deal with a danger, which is a great psychological trick. If you can, again, just going back into D&D and GM theory, if you can convince your players metagame to interact with the game like there is an actual threat, that will help heighten some of the experience, as long as you don't take it too far, and this game doesn't.
Yeah.
This game hits the exact right level.
It kind of makes it feel like Haster's real.
Yeah.
Right? Like, exactly. It kind of does. Yeah, it kind of does, but in, like, the safest, most mechanical, simple way ever. Yeah?
Exactly.
And then you could also use it to your advantage, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, that was
and
also
it also
really
it makes, like, when people make nicknames for them, like, that's just, like, people are going to remember that, and they're going to know the nickname for, like, because I remember you calling him Horby. And because I was like, that was funny. Like, we call him Big Papa H or H word, you know? Like, just like, yeah, it provides that.
Horby is now open.
Yeah. Over 1 million served. Okay. Let's talk about then individual scenario by scenario, if you're cool to go on to that.
I'm happy to.
All right, so first scenario, curtain call. That's the one where you wake up in the theater. This one we lost. We got slaughtered in, but there's that big monster that shows up, and as you explore the theater, kind of picks apart. But I think that one was a lot of training wheels for, like, myself, because my deck needed a scenario to get set up, but you also were playing Dexter. But what did you think of that scenario with all that?
So here's my biggest criticism of Carcosa as a whole. I'm going to keep repeating it because I'm like that. It went too fast. It was so good, but it went too fast. The writing was good, the sense of fear in the audience, the explosion of weirdness slowly occurring, and then the way the game just, like, drops the tension at the end if you fail. Beautiful. All of it. Incredibly good. But it just hit so hard, so quick. Like, it almost reminds me a bit of From Software's habit of being, like, die on your first boss. And it's great that the game was incredibly well designed and clearly well built and thought of that. Like, what happens if you fail? Can you fail forward in a way that makes sense? But it felt quick. I felt like I didn't almost have enough time to appreciate how creepy and unsettling they managed to make the King in Yellow as a play feel. Because, spoilers to people who don't know Lovecraft, the concept of seeing the play is done to death. This is one of the most tropey things ever. This is the Lovecraft equivalent of starting in a tavern.
Yeah, it's so tropey too that even just like you incorporated into a D&D campaign we did. Like
everybody who's ever touched Lovecraft has been like, should I write a copy of The King in Yellow? And I did, and forced my players to act it out in D&D because I was a child. But this one was really well done, and it helped hold the mystery. And mechanically, it felt fun, too. But yeah, it definitely felt quick.
So there were some things that we didn't see when we played. Because we actually never chased the stranger. We never got to him once he showed up. But the creature that appears, Big Butt Baby, every time you kill him, it resets the doom, right? Which I think we did once.
Yeah.
So, like, you're going to keep showing up, and you have to keep killing him, but it could potentially go forever. But when you chase the stranger, the theater basically starts falling apart. Sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's vines, sometimes it's water, sometimes it's goo. And you basically have to, like, follow him to where he's leaving and then get out. So you kind of just miss that part for it. But that's kind of more like, to me, it feels like more video gamey. Like, that's like game design, like, oh, we need our obstacle that shows up. But that is kind of what we missed in that first one. So then we move on to The Last King, which is the house party, where we're interviewing people and, like, they start turning into monsters.
That was so good. That was such a good piece of storytelling.
I agree. It is, like, one of my favorites. I'll never forget the first time Ishimaru Haruko, she was our first guest that turned into a lunatic. And she has the coolest transformation. She turns into the caterpillar from Resident Evil, right? Her spine just... and she, like, starts crawling around. And I'll never forget that, right? Like, that's something that's like it's like a core memory in my life now from this game. And it's such a cool scenario because of that, right? Like, just like the party starts going crazy and you're like, oh my God, like these people I'm talking to start to become monsters, which I think was just really exceptional.
I also want to do some deeper in-depth analysis because one of the things I noticed, and I'm not sure if this is true, but as I was watching the various people transform into monsters, I'm pretty sure they were transforming into monsters that were true of their own cultural heritage. So, like, the idea of a long-necked or an elongated-necked monstrosity is very common in types of Japanese folktales and stories. And some of the other transformations, I was like, wait, are you tying that in? So I was really impressed with it.
Yeah.
That one also didn't feel like it went too fast.
Yes.
That one had a nice creeping build-up.
Yes.
And it felt especially weird, too, because you do just go into this party and everyone's like, welcome, yeah, it's fine, you can be here. And you're like, I'm literally a magician with magic gun hands.
Yeah.
Why are you welcoming me in here?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and that's also kind of like what the meta does, where it's like, is this actually happening or is it all in my head, right, as your character? So then at the end of that scenario, there is a decision, a very important plot decision that I did not influence you at all, but you either get to, like, leave, barricade the door, or light it on fire. And we just left.
I chose I think I said barricade.
Yeah, and we just walked away.
I was a coward.
Yeah.
I neither left and let them live.
It's either go back in, barricade, or light the fire. It's one of those ones, and you just barricaded and
like
walked
a coward.
away. Yeah. So if you go back in, you see someone talking to the man in the pallid mask. If you light it on fire, they're dead. So everyone...
I thought about that after.
Everyone that you didn't kill in the scenario dies in that one, and they never show up again.
I wish we had.
So it's like one of those things where like it makes the future ones easier, but you kind of have to like, you know, kill some innocents. And are they actually innocents, or are they actually like scary monster people? I'm glad you didn't, though, because it does make it more exciting when they do show up again.
Oh, and they felt good every time they showed up, too.
Yes.
Another thing I will say, and I noticed this far more in this one, I'm not sure if this is one of their more technically complicated in terms of variations and offshoots, but as you mentioned, like goo walls, fire walls, all this stuff, this game was really similar to a choose your own adventure. There were so many little variations that they put into every campaign scenario that felt, every time we played, I was like, there's so much more I'm not seeing.
Yeah, so this is actually something that I think is the reason why, apart from the cool factor, apart from all the meta, this is why I think Carcosa ends up being a lot of people's favorites, is just because the scenarios themselves actually have a lot of built-in variety to them in small ways. We're going to get to a few more and talk about them in detail when they get there. But there's a lot of small things that can factor small changes throughout the rest of your campaign. And the scenarios themselves have a lot of different variety for how they spill out. For example, in The Last King, if a certain party member goes crazy before another, it actually can change a lot of the pacing for how the scenario goes with actually doing very little different mechanical space needed, right? It's just like those small things that can change the pace of design, or the pace of like the concept of design in the game without actually needing additional headspace or design space. And that's why I really like Carcosa, because the scenarios themselves are actually relatively simple, but they are mechanically dense in what they can provide for varieties for players when they play. Then we go on to Echoes of the Past. So this is when we go to the Historical Society and we're racing the cultist while they're trying to discover clues before we discover clues.
That one was fun. Again, it was one that I felt like we moved almost too quickly through. And that wasn't just how we were playing and their effectiveness. It was also just the way that the story was written, the way that the story was everything. Like, it felt very like... Go, go, go. Yeah, that one's not a favorite online. That one's like what everyone considers to be like the dark spot in Path to Carcosa. And it's kind of just because you have to like go fast, otherwise you're gonna lose. Yeah. Right? And then when you go fast, there's no pace that the game can outpace you at that point. Yeah. And then you can slow down. And that's kind of what happened with ours. We're kind of just we solve the cultists and then we like never advance the agenda. Yeah. I think I'm less down on the scenario than I was before, but yeah, it's not like as you said, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. It's a great idea. I think they actually delivered on it pretty well.
I think so too. Yeah.
But
I think they delivered on the idea really well. I just think the idea itself didn't have legs enough to stand up that well to be exciting. But then we go to the Asylum, Unspeakable Oath, which is my personal favorite scenario in the entire game, which I'll get to in reasons, but I would love to know what you thought of the Unspeakable Oath in the Asylum.
I wanted to like it better. I am glad that I got stuck in it. That was fun. Losing Dexter Drake halfway through was a good experience for me as a player. Because of a problem with speed for me, a problem with pacing, I was like, why would I set fire to random stuff? Why would I engage in any of these behaviors that are so weird and disruptive? Like, yes, I as the player know that the asylum is probably evil and the doctors are probably evil and everything, but going into it with the way the story was told and when the reveals happened, I was like, why am I lighting a trash can on fire? Like, what type of weird human am I?
Would you say that it would feel this less if the stuff, like, on the main floor was more normal? Yes. Where it was, put, like, a stick in a door to leave it open. And then when you got downstairs, where the patients were kept, then it got weird. Would that be a better pacing for you?
Yeah, happily.
Interesting. I think that's very, very fair.
Yeah, and that's really my only criticism with it. I thought thematically, I thought looks-wise and art-wise, they did a really good job. The writing on it was really solid. I liked the mechanics of it, but just, being told, like, start a fight in the prisoner's yard. And I'm like, why would it?
I think I've never thought about that, but I think that's actually a really good point because, like, I guess, like, the idea is that you actually, like, maybe belong in the asylum, so you're just doing shitty asylum things, you know, like, just, like, and they're like, okay, we gotta put Dexter back in his cell.
Yeah.
But I do think the pace actually would probably have been, like, a juicier onion to peel if it was like normal stuff on the top and then downstairs, because I actually think the stuff in the bottom is pretty straightforward. It's just like path a way out and like memorize the security guards patrols. Like that's easy stuff. Or I think that might be upstairs, but even more if upstairs was just memorize his security guards patrols, because that would make sense.
Exactly.
Right? But yeah, lighting a fire in the kitchen, there's certainly some dissonance there.
Yeah, it's a little weird to just choose to do that as an investigator, especially after the incredible power of the party, where you walk in and you're literally just talking to human beings, like you're waiting for the horror to hit.
Yeah.
And then in the asylum, it's the flip. The asylum's like, we're handling normal patients, and I'm like, I'm gonna light this kitchen on fire. Yeah. But otherwise, really fun.
So the reason why the Unspeakable Oath is my favorite scenario in the whole campaign is that it's the only scenario that I get to and I'm still like 8 out of 10 stressed no matter what, because now you know, and you'll know forever whenever you play it, this might be the end of your character if it goes south, and there's like, it's really up to you to make sure that doesn't happen. Right? You have to play some really tight Arkham for as long as you can. It also has, I think, some great agenda pacing, where you get 2 Mythos phases. So you get 2 turns where there are no enemies in the deck. So, thank you, Russ. You get no enemies in the deck, which means that like it's all free. But then they lock the doors on you, and then you're locked inside. And there's some really cool stuff there that now the enemies are in, and you can start getting monsters. And it just like every time you shuffle a monster in the back of my head, I'm like, that's one more thing that's going to make it more likely for my character to get stuck in here.
That's very strong. That's a very good fear mechanic.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that like I think it ages really well, but I do respect and appreciate the dissonance, because I never thought about that, and I do think it would have been more dissonant if the weird shit happened downstairs and like just normal stuff happened upstairs.
Yeah.
All right, on to then Echoes of the Past. The Phantom of Truth. This is the one where we get to Paris for the first time, and the organist is there, and we had to run away from him, I think.
Yeah.
So there's 2 ways that can go. You either need to run away from him, or you need to chase him down, depending on if you have conviction or doubt. What did you think of that one?
Loved it. I thought it was really good. I thought the way that they chose to handle the concept of running around in Paris and you being like, maybe I'm not really in Paris. Maybe I'm a little out to lunch because of the day-night cycle was really, really clever. That was the first time I feel like Arkham has sent me to like a town or a city and made me not be like, what are all the civilians doing?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's because it's happening at this weird liminal night time and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that one. I thought that was really strong.
Yeah, that one I also really liked because The Court of the Dragon, I love that short story. When I realized what it was, when Travis was reading it, it's like the organ, and I was like, oh, the organ, like that one, and then it's the guy! It's the guy!
him.
It's the guy who chases you, and then, you know, you see Hester for the first time, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I also love it, again, from like, to my original point, how the small changes in design that completely change how the scenario goes. It's a very different scenario versus when you're chasing him versus when you are being chased. Because when you're chasing him, it's normal Arkham. The Doom advances, you got to do it before Doom runs out. When you're chasing him, Doom in play it counters the agenda. So that's what happened to us, right? We needed to survive, but the thing is, it can go longer. And it's those small changes that changes even this card here, which you can see from there from our podcast, but it was fitting, so I kept it here. That it changes the way in which you have to interface with cards with a very minimal design of text. And I actually want them to do more of that, because I think there's less of that in future boxes, and that's kind of thing why Carcosa is so wonderful. It's because it has these really smart, like, time-saving designs and like huge designs that change the pace of the scenario without actually requiring a lot of space.
Yeah.
Okay. We then go to the Pallid Mask when we're in the catacombs of Paris with a map that grows. as we're exploring and trying to find where we need to be going.
That one was good. I thought it was really well laid out. Nice nod to ancient labyrinth card games and like tile-based card games where you're exploring a dungeon or another concept.
Or like The Pit. Do you remember The Pit?
Or like The Pit.
The board game I made ages ago.
Go buy The Pit right now in nowhere.
Yeah, nowhere.
Go find Justin's parents'
I have it. I have it here. It's just one door away.
It's just one door.
Just one door away. Yeah, no, that one, I don't think that one's like particularly memorable, but it does have, once again, going to my point about the things that really change, the small things that change it in ways that you don't expect, but the fact that the map grows differently depending on how you play it is a huge way to offer replayability and make it feel different each time you play it.
Absolutely. And I feel like we had a pretty good run on it, but even as we were playing it, I was like, I could see how we could just die here. Like, this could just kill us.
Yeah. After that, it was Black Star's Rise. That's the one where we went to the island and we needed to know if we needed to go up or down.
Again, really, really great, but again, a pacing issue. All of a sudden, the water is just pouring into the city, and like even reading the story and being engaged in the story, I was just like, what? What's happening? And it just didn't feel... I felt the storm was really well presented. The water rising wasn't. And so there was this like weird imbalance of pacing that I was just like, I don't know what's happening. But mechanically, again, super cool. Super cool that we had to solve one or the other, that they played and influenced off each other. That was super cool.
Yeah, no. I also do like the small things that I think is a really cool part of Carcosa as well. The amount of times that you were like, what? When I was setting stuff up. When I was like, all right, just so you know, there's 2 agendas. And you were like, what? Like, what do you mean? And I think Carcosa does a really good job of exploring that, right? Where it's like the things that change from... Hey, buddy. The things that change from the normal Arkham you're used to at that point. Which is crazy that this was their second campaign.
Yeah.
Because to me, Carcosa, kind of like those areas to explore, kind of feels like a 4th or 5th campaign when you're like, all right, now it's time to do the weird shit. Russ, don't show your butt to everyone on the internet. And then we have the one that's most fresh in your memory, which is Dim Carcosa.
Yes. Okay, Dim Cork. Dim Cork is really good and way too fast. When we started to flip the cards and read the awesomeness that's happening on the back of a bunch of them, so cool. When we read the backs of the cards and it's all the events we've played through and the weird movement through time, like, it encapsulates everything I think that is good and bad about the entirety of this set. It was hypnagogic, it was phantasmagorical, it felt like a dream, and it felt like we just had to go. And even, I hate to say it, but even the layout of it felt so video gamey. And so, like, run! Just get running! And it was, and like, part of that too was that we got hit really hard by the Doom deck. But I really wanted to spend more time in Carcosa.
It's a great place. I get it.
And the writing on the back of each of those cards was so cool. And then it's like, put it back down, never see it again, run. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, you would rather we had like a whole scenario in Carcosa before we went to like fight Haster. That makes sense. And I honestly agree. I'm curious because I think what it's interesting here because I think that the whole idea of like more time and pacing to me will generally lead to more linear experiences, which is crazy because I think that Dream Eaters is very linear, but it's very thematic and it has like an interesting pacing for that. So like I'm curious to see how that one goes because I think like I like Dream Eaters a lot though. Like it's a very I really enjoy the campaign, but it's less fun for me to play through because it's kind of like you're kind of like on rails experiencing a story, right? And the story's really good and really cool, but it doesn't have that kind of like mechanical openness that Carcosa provides. So I'm just curious if if that's like possible, and if like that's why Dream Eaters feels more linear, but also more thematic. Because like Carcosa doesn't really feel like anything, does it? Right?
No.
Like it doesn't. It's like text on the back of cards. There's nothing about it that makes you feel like you're even spending time in Carcosa. You get up on the waters, and then you go to the palace, and then you get to read a few story snippets, but it doesn't thematically feel like Carcosa, right? But the Dream Eater ones, they make me feel like I'm on a journey, like I'm living through a story. So I'm very curious to see how that might change for you. Or if it's like, if this hypothesis of mine ends up being accurate.
I'm super curious too. So to put it another way, this final session felt to me very similar mechanically. The final run felt to me very similar mechanically to the old Arkham game that we used to play, the board game. Yeah. Where you would hop into a dimensional realm and spend 2 or 3 days there, read 2 stories, and then get lost in time and space or die.
Yeah.
And that's very much how this ending felt. Like I didn't feel like I got enough time in that other world.
I mean, Carcosa's my favorite, so if I would also love another scenario in Carcosa.
Do it.
Yeah, I would love to spend a whole bunch of time there. Oh, man. No, I think that's a very fair point, too, because it's true, right? For me, like, I love the theme, but, like, the things that resonate with me is, like, the mechanical density of it. And I think the density of Carcosa isn't, like... I mean, I like that you can fight different Hasters. That's really cool.
Very cool.
But seeing, like, the mechanical density, I even agree. I feel like the mechanical side of it isn't super appealing in the long term. And I think, like, more time exploring that could be interesting. But I honestly just give me more Carcosa.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's yellow.
I mean, yeah, the King in Yellow, Haster, Carcosa, they're all my favorite parts of Lovecraft, like, bar 1 or 2 of the, like, weird side stories.
And also, like, Nyarlathotep also is just, like,
I mean,
S tier. Like, he's the only one that... He to me, he's the only one that has, like, a footing against Haster. But, but yeah, I agree. The Return to, which I would love to play. I imagine we'll play them one day. It adds some more to it.
Sick.
But not on the pacing side. More like it adds more to the end, which we would need to get to experience, which we didn't the first time. So.
We did not.
But yeah, no, I think that's very fair. Because, like, I like playing Dim Carcosa, but mostly just because it's Arkham, and I like playing Arkham.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the game mechanics are good.
It's really good Arkham.
But, like, I like playing Unspeakable Oath because it makes me feel things, and I feel like it has a great, like, mechanical pacing to it. So you really made me think. But overall, you liked Path to Carcosa?
I liked it, yeah. I can see how mechanically and even, like, again, aside from the speed thing, story-wise, grip-wise, and even the way that they handled the larger setting, this was really a step up from Dunwich.
So then, when we started playing Black Star's Rise, you said you were liking Dunwich more. What's your current rating after 2? Is Dunwich number 1 or is Carcosa number 1?
I'm gonna say the controversial thing, but I think Dunwich is still number 1.
Nice. I mean, it's hard to forget your first.
It's hard to forget your first.
But also, like, it's interesting because, like, there's a lot of campaigns in this game and they all offer something different. So, like, even then, like, over time, it's like you might be like, wait a minute, like, because I like when I first started too, you know, it's just like or like the next one, Forgotten Age. We hated it when we first played it.
I'm probably gonna hate it too.
But it's now one of my favorites.
Amazing.
Because it's like, it's really challenging, but it's also like, it's really good. So yeah. So we'll see you guys in, like, I don't know, 16 weeks when we do this again. When we do Forgotten Age, because for people who are wondering when that one's going to start, not for a while. Mostly because Eric and I are going to be playing it, but I like to have a backlog just in case shit comes up in Eric and I's life and we need to, like, be like, okay, we can't record for a few Mondays. I don't want you at home feeling a gap, so you do not need to worry about that. But
So we trick you by putting the gap in front.
exactly. The gap is in front. We don't want you to have to, like, watch 4 episodes and then, like, wait 2 weeks to watch another 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So you can just see all 9. See, spoiler alert. Maybe 10. Spoiler alert for Forgotten Age.
How can there be a better
I know. But thanks so much for watching. if you've recently played Path of Carcosa, I'd love to know what you thought of it. Let us know down in the comments. But in the meantime, have a great one. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, GG's.